Here.
Harpin.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
LaForest.
Here.
Lamb. Moran.
Here.
Wilkinson.
Here.
You have 8 present.
We have quorum. Please stand for a moment of silence tonight. Let's remember David Shaker. He is a former member of the Board of Assessors. And the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from July 24th.
Motion to accept.
Second. Council Forrest, Councilor Wilkinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Minutes approved. Paper number 10,674-6, an ordinance amending the revised zoning map of the city of North Adams from R2-2, I-1, and I-2 to CC-1 in City Council July 24th, 2018. This was voted to pass to a second reading and published as required by law. We need a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion Wilkinson, and I'll give it to Harpin.
Yeah.
You get more, anyway.
She was out of the gate first.
There you go. We have any discussion? Yes, Councilor Buddington.
I'd just like to reiterate my opposition on the grounds that a CA1 zone, for instance, would be a better match for our long-term plan in North Adams. I think the CC1 zone allows a lot of things that we don't want in that part of town.
Other discussion? Any discussion from the public? Not hearing any other discussion, this is a roll call vote.
Buddington.
No.
Cohen.
No.
Harpin.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes,
Motion carries.
motion carries. Mr. Smithers, is that all you're here for tonight?
That's all I'm here for.
Welcome to leave. You're welcome. All right. Paper number 11,686, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Kim's Cut Salon located at 9 Eagle Street. This was voted to postpone to a meeting August 14th. The application has the initials of the owner, which was incomplete at the last meeting. We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Hopkins and Herpin. Do we have any other discussion? Discussion from the public? Not hearing any. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Harpin.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes,
Motion carries. You have
motion carries. We're going to have a few of these, so they may sound redundant. Paper number 11,687, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Maria Carmaine, owner of Mia's Exchange, located at 11 Eagle Street. The application has been initialed, and it is all in order. We need a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Harpin and Hopkins. Discussion. Discussion from the public. Not hearing any other discussion. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Harpin.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
8 yeas. Motion carries.
Yeah. Paper number 11,689, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Christopher Barton, owner of Clippers Kings, located at 12 Eagle Street. The application is complete. We do need a motion to amend the address to 14 Eagle Street. So first, can I have a motion to amend?
So moved?
Second.
Second, so it will now be on your paper, 14 Eagle Street instead of 12. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, amendment passes. Now, a motion to accept the application, or to approve the application.
So move.
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
Oh, sorry, this is a roll call vote, sorry, my bad. I'm trying to zip through these. Roll call vote.
Buddington.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Harpin.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
Motion carries. 8
Motion
yeas.
carries. Paper number 11,690, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Charles O'Brien, does say owner of Adams Community Bank, located at 31 Eagle Street. This was July 24th, 2018, voted to postpone to a meeting of August 14th. The application has been initialed and is complete. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Yeah. Second.
A
Got it.
discussion. Yes.
I just want to thank the business owners and the community for being patient with us through this process. I think we postponed it for a while just to stay consistent and to make sure that we had everything in place, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other discussion from counselors? Discussion from the public? This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
No.
and Bona.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Paper number 11,691, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Flatiron Condominium Trust for Birdsong Gallery located at 36 Eagle Street. This was in City Council July 24th, 2018, voted to postpone to a meeting of August 14th. Counselor Lamb opposed. The application has been initialed and complete. We need a motion to amend the address to 40 Eagle Street first.
So moved.
Second.
So we have the motion. All in favor of the motion to change to 40 Eagle Street?
Aye.
Opposed? The address has been changed. Now a motion to accept the application.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And this is, any discussion? Discussion from the public. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
and motion carries.
Motion carries. Paper number 11,692, an order granting permission to install an overhanging sign to Flatiron Trust Gallon Gallery located at 44 Eagle Street. This was in City Council July 24th, 2018, voted to postpone to the meeting of August 14th. At the time, Councilor Lamb opposed. This application has been initialed and is now complete. We need a motion also to amend the address to 48 Eagle Street. So a motion to amend.
So moved. Second.
And all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes. Now we need a motion to accept the application, approve the application.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Not hearing any. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
8 yeas, motion carries.
Motion carries. So that looks like it for Eagle Street signs. So hopefully soon you'll see them all up. Paper number 11,693, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance of the City of North Adams entitled Stopping, Standing, and Parking Generally, Section 13-50, entitled Parking Time Limited on Designated Streets, Ashland Street. This was in City Council July 24th, 2018, and it was voted to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law. We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion from the council. Discussion from the public. Yes, Mr. Cardamino. Name and address for the record, please. 2 minutes.
Robert Cardamino, 173 East Quincy. Could you get a little clarification on this? I don't really understand what this is going on, and I don't know if the public would, just, it's pretty vague. If you stop there on, say, Ashland Street or wherever, and an officer comes along, he gives you a ticket, why and how long?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to clarify it all, Mary Ann? I'm just curious. This did go to Traffic Commission, and we happen to have the...
This is the college where there's going to be the...
Correct, yeah. So we happen to have the chairperson of the Traffic Commission, so if you could speak to the mic, just give your name and address for the record, and I think it's pretty simple, but just go ahead, please.
Mary Ann King, 87 North Street, North Adams. Yeah, basically, this came to Traffic Commission from the chief at MCLA, Chief Colano. There have been issues exiting their driveways down by the facilities building and also by their large parking area. There has been one accident, which was one of their employees after he had given me this letter, there was another accident in that area. Reason that we're doing the no parking in this area is because you cannot see if you're driving a regular vehicle out of the driveway because of where the cars are parked. In researching before this came to the board, the area all in front of the facilities building was never parking all day long. It started out as a 2-hour zone back when the former A. Shapiro and Son was in that area, and then at one point it went to a 15-minute zone. So there was never parking all day long there. What's happening right now is all their commuters are parking in that area, and again, like I said, you can't see coming out of the driveway. The area, their last driveway, just before the trestle, from there south to the from that driveway south to the trestle, that always has been no parking. So what we've done is we've extended it up past the facilities building, which would be their second driveway, and then we went 20 feet either side of the driveway, no parking. So this way here, the visibility would be much clearer and hopefully no more accidents.
Does that help, Mr. Cardamino? Yeah. Marion, just for a second, I think there was some confusion at some points. I do remember there was discussion that this was in front of some houses or abutting some house areas. This is not near any residential houses, correct?
No, the opposite side of the street there's that condo that sets in the back, and there's a house there. There is no parking on that side of the street at all, and then you go into all the townhouses, and past the townhouses, we didn't touch that at all, so it's not, bothering any residents.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilor Lamb. I mean, sorry, Councilor. Hold on, Marion, you might have questions coming. Councilor LaForest. It was the L.
Through the chair, I just want to make sure, is there sufficient parking for the businesses located on the west side of Ashland Street through that area?
There are no businesses there. Oh, or are you talking?
Speak into the mic, please, sorry.
Yeah, there's the restaurant and the cafe.
No, it's not up there.
Oh, that's up further. That's not
It's not
interfering with it
affected
at all.
by this?
No.
Okay.
No, we're only going, it's going to be just that first driveway past the facilities building. So you actually have the whole frontage of the parking lot, and then you go into where the businesses are. So that's all parking there. So we haven't touched that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Fortunate you were here tonight. Appreciate it. Let's see. Any other discussion from the public? Not hearing any. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpin,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
8 yeas, motion carries.
Motion carries. Mayor's communication, paper number 11,694, Mayor's communication number 55, recommending the appointments of the election officers beginning September 1st, 2018. We need a motion to confirm.
So moved.
Wilkinson
Second.
and Hopkins. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Harp.
I just have a question through the chair
Sure.
to the mayor. I guess I'm just concerned about the time frame because it's through August 31st, 2019. So normally we have elections, primary elections are normally the first Tuesday of September. So next year that would be the 3rd of September. So it's just a question. I'm not sure if these people need to be sworn in, if they need to be trained, and if that 3 days gives that enough time to do that.
I'll refer this to the clerk because these are the dates that she provided.
Correct. They'll get sworn in again next year at the same time, before an election. But these are election workers that have been with us some of them have been with us for 20 years. So they are all trained and all set. We just had a training on the new voting machines. We had 4-hour trainings for all our wardens. And so we've had that already, so they have been trained on the new machines. But these individuals here have been with the elections for many years, and they are very qualified. And our time frame is always just a year, so they'll be appointed again before. That's why they came in now, because we have an election September 4th. So they'll be all sworn in before then.
Thank you. Any other questions from counselors? Questions from the public? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Paper number 11,407-2, Mayor's Communication number 56, amending Chapter 2 of the revised ordinances of the City of North Adams Public Arts Commission. Without objection, I will file the communication. Actually, we may do this a little different. Mayor, would you prefer to do your communication now, at this point?
Yes.
All right. So we'll let the mayor do his communication at this point. We will then move on to the next paper for discussion, just so we just have one opportunity. If people want to talk, they can. So, Mayor, you're on.
Thank you. So this is an issue that was previewed in the press and in communication to the council. It's something that I received questions about as well from members of the council and from members of the community. What was clear was that there was confusion about the role of the Public Arts Commission, in particular about two things with regard to prior public art installations, where the authority of the commission is limited because the city never established ownership of installed works, and the works that have been installed predated the existence of the commission. But also questions with regard to current work predicated by the establishment and introduction of a contract for, or an agreement for public art. That's something that was developed by the city solicitor and reviewed and edited by the commission before it was approved and implemented. And so the questions and the agreement prompted a closer look at the ordinance. And my reading of the ordinance is that it grants the commission greater authority than is normal for other boards and commissions in the city. So this isn't a question of centralizing authority to the mayor's office or about limiting the ability of the commission to represent the community. I really believe that the advisory role of the commission is broadly representative and almost always definitive. So this is not about a veto power for the commission. It's adding an appropriate step to the process. And it's about being consistent with other boards and commissions. If you look at the Human Services Commission, for example, their role with funding is about making recommendations to the mayor. Parks and Rec and Windsor Lake both are defined as advisory commissions to the Commissioner of Public Services, and the Traffic Commission that we just heard from is construed to have reports and recommendations that are advisory only. So this is really about bringing this commission in line with other boards and commissions. I also really want to be clear, this is not a reflection on the work of the commission. I have full confidence in the commission, the existing members, many of whom I have worked with in multiple capacities over the years, as well as the new members who were recently appointed to the commission. I also want to say that the contract that was established is a good document. It lays out the roles of the city as well as the artist and the sponsoring organization. However, it also places obligations on the city and on city departments for the installation and potentially for the maintenance of work. And those are departments that report to the mayor. So having that contract with that, I think it's important to make the advisory role of this commission clear going forward. So I would anticipate the next steps on this are that my preferred language, which is what I brought forward, states really clearly the roles and responsibilities of the commission as advisory, makes it consistent with other boards and commissions. I tried to remain consistent with existing language as much as possible, understanding the work that went into developing the ordinance. So, for example, I retained the use of the word approval, where maybe acceptance would be a clearer word for the role of the mayor, but that could be a friendly amendment to consider going forward. I anticipate you will receive public comment this evening and that the ordinance will be referred to committee. Both of these things absolutely should happen. The language should get a full and careful vetting with plenty of public input, including from the council, members of the Public Arts Commission, and members of the community, and the result will be a stronger ordinance for guiding the work of the Public Art Commission going forward.
Thank you. All right, that means we will move on to the actual paper, which is paper number 11,407-2, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 34, Public Arts Commission of the revised ordinances of the City of North Adams. I'm going to suggest, and it can be changed, but I'm going to say a motion to refer to general government and Public Arts Commission joint meeting. That would be a recommendation that.
I'd be okay with that.
So
I'll make that motion. I'm seeing some frowns, so we can.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's fine. So we are into discussion, and again, that can be changed, but, so right now, there is a motion on the floor that this would be a joint meeting of the general government and the Public Arts Commission, which, sort of initially, as I remember, a lot of those members, the general government and the members of the Public Arts Commission now were a big part of that, so. Discussion from counselors.
Did we get a second on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Sorry. Just
So,
making sure.
discussion from counselors. Yes, Counselor Harpen.
I did get several correspondences from people that are involved in the cultural community and the arts community that I would just like to express here. Former Councilor Merrigan is not for these changes based on how the Public Arts Commission was originally set up and for it being an inclusive commission. Julia Dixon, who I think is here as well, will probably speak. And the most influential one was from Michelle Daly, who is the director of MCLA Berkshire Cultural Resource Center. And I just want to read what she sent to me. Okay? I'm not going to read the whole email, but things that I believe are important to our community that she reflected here. The selection of public artworks is always a subjective and at times contentious process. However, a move away from collective decision-making will not improve this dynamic, but will further signal to those who feel left out of the process that their ideas are not welcome. This is a move away from the best practices of creative placemaking, which should be central to the City of North Adams' efforts. The Project for Public Space articulates this when they say, to ensure the success of these projects, these also need to be understanding amongst everyone involved that the community is the expert. Arts-based placemaking is fundamentally collaborative, engaging the community and stakeholders from the very beginning. The community itself is both driving force, the project, and the key measure of its success. We believe that any place to be truly successful, people must not only feel like they belong, but also that they can play an active part in the creation, management, and continued success of that place. So I think this is a person that is an expert in the cultural arts, and I think that is an important person to listen to as an expert. I think it's important to have inclusion in the city and to create an atmosphere of inclusion, which creates ownership. So, you know, if people are involved in the arts and public art that is going to be publicly displayed in areas that, you know, the community sees, it's important for them to be a part of that. And it's important for our community to feel as though they're a part and they have ownership of that. So in having ownership of that, it creates a community that is well balanced, and it's a community that is going to be more involved and engaged and proud. So I am not for these changes. I will be voting against these. I have some other information that I can give as far as, you know, some mayor's recommendations, National Mayor's Council that, we have something here. Okay, so this is an executive summary from the National Endowment of the Arts in partnership with the United States Conference of Mayors, an American Architectural Foundation, and it's about creative placemaking. And the executive summary says, in creative placemaking, partners from the public, the private, nonprofit, and community sectors strategically shape the physical and social character of a neighborhood, town, city, or region around arts and cultural activities. You know, I think that's that says it all right there. I mean, it's all about the public. It's all about getting people involved. It's all about being inclusive. So that is why I am not going to support the changes, and I would prefer to keep the Public Arts Commission the way that it is.
Counselor Cohen, then Counselor Wilkinson.
I'm, in reading this and in speaking with a lot of people, and I have had conversations with you as well, I feel as though this is directly a reflection of being reactive towards an issue that we have in the city with the pillars. I see that there's some great changes in here. You have a very good way, with words, and I appreciate that. What I'm having a hard time really grasping at this point is leaving the absolute power up to the mayor for such a big part of our culture and the changes that we're seeing in the city. Having the city council, the members that we have here seems more impartial than leaving it up to one person. And I do worry that coming in the future, that if we have a mayor that doesn't really look at arts the way that you do and the way that we value the arts in this community, that may be an issue someday with the change of ordinance that you have here, and leaving that up solely to the mayor, a lot of those changes, and especially with removing some art and putting some art in. Again, some of these changes are great, and I think the general government is going to look at this and they're going to see some really great verbiage in here, but I definitely think that we need to rethink leaving that power up to one person. Not that I don't trust you, Mayor, I do, but I'm saying in the future, I always look towards the future of this stuff, and this doesn't seem like it could be sustainable in the future, and really look at the well-being of the arts in our community.
Counselor Wilkinson.
Yep. Leaving this up to the city council is a big mistake. Can't be done because it's against the city charter. The city council does not have the role of making decisions of those kind of items. The mayor would if he had the authority, or a committee would. For us to sit here and declare tonight whether we're for or against this is a huge mistake, only from the point of view is we haven't gone to committee yet. We haven't heard from the public yet. Yet we got people already up here saying I'm opposed, or I'm for this. Nobody said they're opposed to it yet. It's premature. Let's go to committee. Let's talk it out. Let's hear from the public. I also got all those emails today. Some were very interesting reading. But it's premature for us to take sides at this point. Let's just send it to committee.
Other councilors. Counselor Buddington.
I agree. This is, as usual, a very complicated issue. I would like to acknowledge that the mayor provided us with these changes in a nice marked up format, so it was easy to tell what was being removed and added, which is better than we often get, and I really do appreciate that. I think the specific case of the artwork under the Marshall Street Bridge is important, and obviously we should not legislate to specific examples, but it is also the context in which we're discussing this. And one thing that I would be happy, I'd like to see is just a layout of the facts without opinions, of just the history of what did happen there, because as a starting point, sometimes we don't have that for our discussion. And as to the actual changes, I find they're a mix of a bunch of grammatical changes, which are clearly designed to make it grammatically consistent. But I'd certainly like and intend to consider those separately from the substantial changes having to do with authority. And there's one part of it that is currently confusing, and I think with the mayor's suggested version is also confusing, which is the actions of acquiring ownership is different from the requirements for placing art over a public space, and those are different for the requirements for moving, altering, and removing artwork. And those definitions overlap, and some of the lists of the authority seem to me to be redundant. And I would love to, if nothing else, get the ordinance cleaned up a bit so that a non-lawyer could make sense of it, and maybe even two lawyers could agree on the sense of it.
Thank you. Other councilors. Councilor LaForest.
I actually would like to hear some of the comments from the public. I do have a lot to say on this matter, and I think there are a couple of elephants in the room that we're not addressing. Most notably, the pillars under the Route 2 overpass on Marshall Street, in the very complex legal situation around the various steps of those installations that have led to the necessary review of these ordinances. And frankly, the ordinances as written now are confusing. They're very ambiguous, and they make vague references to the city council and the mayor's office, and at one point even refer to City Hall. There are many issues here, one of which is the the role of the political action, Public Arts Commission. I was seeing PAC in the air and misspeaking. You are nonetheless a political action committee to some extent. The bottom line is that these ordinances do need to be rewritten, and so it certainly does make sense to send them to the General Government Committee and to seek input from the Public Arts Commission. That being said, I'm concerned about many things, and I'll just try to, speak to these dispassionately and somewhat succinctly, which I don't typically do. It takes me about 10 minutes to get to a mediocre point at best. So I'm concerned about the tone of some of the communication this week, emails both to city councilors and the tone in the article in the Berkshire Eagle. And I question the ability of the Public Arts Commission as it's currently incorporated to work together with the mayor and the city. And I hope that that relationship can be improved because there are going to be, further debates. There's going to be further concerns. There are going to be further complex legal issues surrounding installations in the city and intellectual property rights. And I just feel that, the ordinances need to be clear, and the relationship between all of the components needs to be professional so that we can do what's in the best interest of the city. I agree with former Councilor Merrigan on some aspects of the ordinances, and I guess that's really something that I don't want to say too much about tonight because it should, Councilor Wilkinson is correct, it should go to committee, and we should, discuss and debate and determine language there for new ordinances. I guess, my one, well, and multiple concerns, but a concern is the role of the the council as the legislative arm of the city, and what is determined in the charter versus what is precedent over the last 50, 60 years since the charter was adopted. So that question remains also, but I don't think all of the proposed language by the mayor is inappropriate. Many of his recommendations are consistent with ordinances for, as he said, for other boards and commissions across the city, and it does make sense that there be some, cohesive language and cohesive work for all of the components of the city. That being said, I do also share in the concern, and some of what may follow may not be popular, and I don't have this written down, so I'll try to be articulate and dispassionate also. And I actually shared my concerns with the mayor, I believe, on Sunday about this, and it does sort of speak to the issue of what future mayors, past, present, and future, for that matter, how they perceive of art and the appropriateness of certain installations and the duration of installations and public opinion. We know that art is not always well received initially. We know that artists are not well received during their lifetimes historically, and so that is a concern. And I did also speak to the perception of possible conflicts of interest between the various components in the city in terms of museums, public education institutions, which also, have, participate in the fine and performing arts in the city. And the caution that we need to take to make sure that those conflicts of interest, do not become legalized in decisions that are made for the fine and performing arts in the city. That is not an accusation against anyone past, present, or future. It's merely a question that we should ask as we deliberate, these ordinances. I am, very interested in what, the public has to say, and I hope that, we will, not to have a back and forth, but I hope that, we will have an opportunity to have, concluding remarks after the public portion of the debate.
We do. I have a couple comments myself. I'm going to try to limit them, as I do feel the committee is the better place to discuss this. Members of the public, you won't have a time limit at the committee. It's really up to the chairperson, but typically tonight you will get a 2-minute time limit. Unless it's specific, I will say Ms. Dixon requested 3 minutes, and since it is specific to, she's the chairperson and it is specific to her committee, I did say she could do that. But as for the rest of the public, you will be following the regular rules. I would say I agree with Councilor Wilkinson. It's too premature to say yes and no to this. There are clearly some things in here that need cleaning, clarifying. One of the things I noticed where the mayor has crossed out and replaced is shall. That was very commonly used. I did a search today. It is used about 850 times in our ordinances. When it is used, it means must.
Right.
It says city council shall have 9 members. We don't have an option of having 7. It says city council shall meet on Tuesday nights at 7:30. It actually is defined twice, definition in our ordinances. Shall means must or, but that's how it's defined. However, legally, today, that word is not used as much. If it goes to court, they do consider it as it may mean may. So just saying, but in our ordinances, when you go through our ordinances, typically when you see shall, it does mean must. So he's replaced that word pretty much everywhere. I think he forgot a couple, to will or must. And again, it just makes it clearer for the future. It's an old legal word, and I do remember it was DeRosa that helped us with this, and DeRosa has helped us with many ordinances over the year, and it was just a common practice to use that word. But I think as we move forward with changing any of our ordinances, that is a word that we need to correct and make clear what it is. Over the past couple years, the white elephant, the bridge pillars, I don't want to make this ordinance, I don't want to make this about the bridge pillars. I think we've learned from the bridge pillars. I think we can look at that and say, how do we not have something like that happen again? And how do we follow what's in place? But I do think there was some confusion, and I do feel there's positions on both the executive office in the past and the Public Arts Commission that failed with that project and possibly some others. I mean, on the day that those pillars were being painted, as they were being painted, I sent a message to Mayor Alkenbright, a member of PAC, and the chairperson of PAC. At the time they were being painted, I said, what is going on? I don't remember hearing anything about this. And obviously it continued at that time. Yes?
Question, if I could, through the chair to the mayor. Do we know why they were painted over?
I'm going to just keep it point of order. Why I'm using that as an example, I prefer not to have the topic tonight, though that I'm just using an example of there have been issues with when it comes to, I think, the public art in both arenas. I think the same follows with the current ordinances.
just curious,
And
that's
there
all right.
are compromises, and that may come out, but I'm just saying, right now, I prefer.
I'll ask you
again,
later.
This ordinance is not completely focused on that, but I think it is a good learning lesson of where mistakes were made. But I also feel recently there were mistakes made. The mural that's at the corner of Eagle and Marshall, and again, I have communicated that with the mayor, and I know that the chairperson has since communicated with me about that, but I was concerned about that. We saw the drawing, a drawing was put out, and but yet none of the property owners or businesses on Main Street were informed that something like that was going to happen right in front of their businesses. And I also feel that the art is there is also not what was presented to be there, but that's something else. So I feel there are areas that need to be fixed. The other thing, city council, where do we fall in this? So there is one area where it says that the PAC should come to us when they discuss planning and design. It does have us listed in there. And so we could use the down street mural sidewalks. Is that part of a plan, and were we presented with that? Should we have been? I don't know. You know, there's some of that that's questionable. But here's one that comes to mind. We recently, tonight, we had to approve bonding and insurance for signs that are overhanging city property. So if art is out there and it is not owned by the city, and there is art out there, even though we think it's owned by the city, if we don't have a contract that says we own it, it is not our art. Who's liable for it? Have we approved, have we seen any insurance on it? You know, if a sculpture is put on Main Street, you know, obviously now with contracts moving forward, that can be clearer. But when something's put on public property, it does go through council. When something is gifted or given or the city purchases, it must go through, typically it must go through city council. When benches are donated to the city, we have to accept that as a gift. So if someone gives the city a sculpture and says, this is for you to put on your sidewalk, but yeah, it goes through PAC. PAC can accept it, but I believe it will still, and this is a legal question, but I believe the council has to be the one that approves it, the final approval. A city cannot, someone cannot give the land, a house. I talked to former city clerk today. She said the council once had to approve a historic book that was worth $44 because it was donated to the city. So we may still be more involved in this than we realize, but that is something I did talk with the mayor about. It came to mind. I was like, if someone is gifting, because part of the contract talks about owning, the city owning the art. Well, if the city is owning the art, someone gave that art to the city. And if an artist is giving it to the city, somehow I do believe we will have to be involved in that, and that may come into this ordinance. I could be wrong, but I do believe that's when we'll be consulting legal counsel also. That's all I'm going to say at this point. I do hope everyone goes to I think it's a pretty big ordinance. Oh, one other thing. I think there's this fear that by the mayor taking it over, which I don't think he is taking it over, Parks and Recs is a good example. We have a lot of wonderful parks and recs. We have baseball fields. We have water parks. We have skateboard parks. Parks and Recs recommends to the mayor. And I would not say we lack parks and recreational because mayors in the past have just said, no, I don't want it. 99% of what our committees, commissions, boards have recommended to us usually do go forward. So I feel like I've read the social media and there's this fear that by changing this, art will not happen. Art is happening here. And if the mayor doesn't allow it to happen, the mayor won't happen here. So, and maybe that's the fear in what some people are saying, but I don't think art is going to be stopped. I do feel there needs to be stronger communications with PAC and the administration and maybe with us down the road. But that being said, I will open it up now to the public, and let's see the hands first. So what I'm gonna do is start from the front and move backwards. So we have Mr. Smith, we have Mr. Melito, we'll go in that order. Aaron will be next. Mr. Dix, did I say Aaron? Not Aaron, Julia, sorry, Julia. Erica, thank you. Bill, Joseph, you're going to be at the end. Your father's going first, so you get to be last. So we're going to start and end with a Smith. Go ahead.
My name's Robert Smith. I live at 140 Pleasant Street. And there's a couple of things that I find a little disturbing here. And that is, I agree with Councilwoman Cohen in regards to the mayor having too much of a say here without some kind of public involvement where he would be able to make decisions, and I find the public is not involved the way they should be on anything going on in this city, including art or anything else. I agree with Council Williamson that we should pursue this matter involving the public as far as we can, because the public are the city residents, and the public should be aware of what's going on in the city and have some say in decision making in this city. And I don't think that's going on. And as Council Lady Cohen said, it's not a question of a personal thing against the mayor, but you have to think going forward, as she pointed out, you don't know what the next mayor is going to be able to decide going forward. So I'm not in favor of the mayor having too much say with this without a lot more of the public interest getting involved in any decision making involving this item here. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Melito, name and address for the record, please.
Yep. Vincent Melito, 74 Marion Avenue, North Adams. Based on what I know, and I'm not going to say a lot about, I'm not going to really present our case, but knowing the history, the past history of why this commission, this PAC commission was formed, what was the logic behind it? Why did the mayor want it this way, the ex-mayor want it this way? Knowing the history of what's going on in the city right now, particularly with the Marshall Street paint over, and there's real history of why that happened. And it was a lot of mistakes being made in that. And I think that we're trying to get this, let me just go off a second. We're trying to get the city to respond to that in our way of thinking by taking a sample of that paint so we know that the children's work still exists underneath the gray paint, which is the artwork was painted over with an anti-graffiti paint, so it may be recoverable. Our mayor does not want to take that step. So I think that's a dangerous situation for the public. Somebody has to speak for the children in North Adams. Somebody has to speak for the community. And I can tell you, I've got a lot of emails. We're starting a petition drive, which will run tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow at the downtown celebration. A lot of people want to see that North Adams has true representation, and I think it's best could be performed through the PAC committee. Knowing what the possible ramifications of the mayor having complete control in the future also leaves us with some doubts, and I think that those are the considerations that you're going to have to make. The former city council passed the ordinance as it is. There was good reason for that. And I would assume, and I hope that you folks will do the same. But again, we'll make our case at the Government Study Committee, which I would think that's the next step.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to clarify, though, that the Public Arts Commission also denied testing on the pillars. So it did go to vote. So it's not just the current mayor. Thank you. Ms. Dixon.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Julia Dixon, 243 Union Street. I'm a co-founding member of the Public Arts Commission, which was established in December 2015. And I've served as its chair for a year and a half. I issue this statement as myself and not on behalf of any other member or members of the Public Arts Commission. As we've talked about, Mayor Bernard has proposed numerous changes to the Commission's ordinance. Again, as we have all seen, while many of these changes are syntactic, it's important not to miss something structurally significant. In his edits, the Commission's role changes from a decision-making body to an advisory body. This is neither insignificant nor clarifying. Before reviewing and or ratifying these changes, it's important to understand from a Public Art Commissioner's perspective the political impact of this change in authority. It seems that the public and others in city government have been unsure as to whether we have been an advisory or a decision-making commission. Early on in the commission's history, we ourselves had discussions about our own authority. As an under-resourced commission, we questioned our abilities and our capacity to engage the community. We did establish our own policies and procedures, but we also did a lot of advising, not because that was our relationship with the mayor, but because that was what the need was from some individuals who approached us with proposals early on in our process. Only recently, under this current mayor's term, did we receive proposals that required contracts which could have activated our authority in ways we had not felt before. However, we sent those contracts to the mayor to sign. Should we have signed those contracts ourselves? According to the ordinance, yes. Now the mayor is proposing to control the approval of any future public art proposal. This places all decisions regarding public art in the hands of a single elected official. Ask yourselves, is it better to enable the agenda of one or balance the agendas of several? What if the next mayor, as you have also indicated, doesn't want to be the decision maker regarding public art in the city, or worse, is opposed to public art? If the mayor finds the Public Arts Commission's authority hard to justify, what about, say, other contracting commissions, of which there are some? Does this ordinance change reflect a new precedent in all commissions' authority? How will the mayor or city council protect the community's voice through the public art process? These are questions that should not be taken lightly. From my perspective, it is crucial that city arts commissions remain grounded by democratic oversight. These ordinance changes reflect a political process that is counter to everything we know about public art, community engagement, civic participation, and local creative culture. The Public Arts Commission was designed to create a fair, continuous public art program that reflects the city's history, identity, and community, not city administration. So I also respectfully request that the council refers this to committee, as is typically done with all ordinance changes, so that these can be vetted in an open and transparent way. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else in that row? Anyone else in that row? One row back. Erica. Name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Erica Manville. I live at 10 Summer Street in Adams now. I'm formerly of North Adams. I'm currently the art teacher at Drury High School. That just happened. And I, a long time ago, in 2014, I believe, I'm looking because you were there, Mayor Aukenbright asked me to sit in a room with about 40 people, some of which were from MCLA, and we drafted our first group of people to then draft the ordinance. I then was the founding chair of the PAC, and it was a lot of what we're discussing right now happened with General Government Committee with Councilor Buddington and Councilor Merrigan. And we spent a lot of time, I felt a little bit like I was in a movie, Groundhog's Day. We spent a lot of times talking about art. And I went to art school, and I still can't tell you what art is, okay? So art is a lot of things to a lot of people. And what's important is that we define what art is to the public. And that's why we existed, right? So art isn't for one person, the mayor, to decide what it is, right? Art is for the public. And I took my role as the chair of the Public Arts Commission very seriously, and I sometimes voted against what I would think because I knew what I thought the public would think. And that's what was important. And I was appointed by the mayor, right? The mayor had some say into who was there. But I can tell you right now that there are philosophy classes that spend hours talking about what art is, but not what a park is, right? We all know what a park is. Like, and people might get a little like, okay, parklet, ooh, you know, like we might talk about that a little bit, but there are whole like classes, just that's all we do is talk about what art is. So I think it's very important that we keep what we intended to do was make it so that it was mayor proof. We actually used the word mayor proof with Mayor Aukenbright. We said, we want this to exist for the public, not for one person. So to change this, it's symbolic to me. It's more than It's just a symbolic change to me, and I'm glad it's going to committee to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bill, did you want to talk? Yep. Mr. Blackmer.
William Blackmer, 74 Cleveland Avenue. I'm a member of the Public Arts Commission since, well, our first meeting was January in 2016. So a lot of when we talk about what was meant in that ordinance, they spent hundreds of hours with multiple groups and a 10-person group and multiple meetings, and then went to general government, who spent multiple meetings with Councilor Merrigan. It's not a wholly new compromised council, or, constituted council. This isn't old. We don't have to look to 1776 if you're wondering what the intent was in what the council crafted. It's only a couple of years old. You can actually ask the founding councilors and members what they were trying to achieve. I did see where the authority was, there was an error in writing that. There wasn't an error in writing that. The council wrote that. They intentionally wrote that. It went through the solicitor, and the solicitor approved it. If that wants to be changed, it's changed. But the council didn't make a mistake in giving an authority to a body that they thought was important through the art. And there was some talk, and no disrespect to the corner office, but they didn't know with every 2-year cycle, they didn't want to leave it up to Tom, Dick, or Harriet, whoever was in the office, to have to say yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. The commission provides like a continuity. You have a contract, you have, the clerk gets the agenda, it's open, it's transparent, people can come, they can talk, and it's known. And there's 5-year terms that the mayor appoints, and it really wasn't, there's some things that could be cleaned up in there and grammatically, but I don't know if it's really in a conflict with other commissions. I hear some commissions, I don't think the airport commission is overruled by the mayor, or maybe the historical commission, the conservation commission. So there probably are some things to look at when we talk about keeping it like other commissions. But it does seem like it would be more of a advisory if I were an artist coming and wanted to make a large investment of my time and money into the community. I guess I would start at the mayor's office, because I'm not going to go through the application, the curriculum vitae, give examples of my work, give a presentation to the art commission, go through multiple meetings over a period of months, and then kind of wonder if I'm going to get a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I think what you have is what was meant by the council, and now this council's here, and I guess you'll do general government again and take it through its course. Thank you.
Thank you. Row number 4, Mr. Cardamino.
Robert Cardamino, 173 Quincy Street. Mayor, please don't take this personally. We're friends. I want to leave here friends. But anyway, when you leave it to one person to decide what is going to be displayed on the streets, it may be something he likes and something I do not like. At least if I go to a museum and I start seeing art that I don't like, I walk out. But if it's on the street and I go by there and it's in my face every day and I don't like it and it's offensive, I'm not saying that's going to happen, Mayor, please. But at least when you got a commission of, I don't know how many people are on there, but at least you'll get different viewpoints of what should be placed in the public. And that's my feeling about it, and the way some of this art is going, do we want some art we don't want the children to see? And it could happen. It all depends who the mayor is, how liberal he could be, or whatever. So that's what we have to look at least the Arts Commission. I had a lot of faith in them, and I don't know all the members, but I'm sure they know a lot more about it than I do. But never mind, that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Back row. I guess, are your kids speaking? Okay. We'll let you can speak.
Joseph Smith. I live at 131 Horgan Road in Clarksburg, and I'm also the owner of 140 Pleasant Street in North Adams. I am generally uncomfortable with the idea of changing an ordinance that was thoughtfully written and vetted only 3 years ago by many of the same people who are in our city government today. Mayor Bernard points to the idea that final say on our choices should be left to him as the contracting authority. It is interesting to note, however, that the proposed contract section is rather meaningless. It specifies a default 5-year term, which can be less or more if he desires. It ambiguously says that any contract can be terminated at any time by the city when it feels it is quote-unquote necessary. In other words, completely at the mayor's pleasure. If we look at the bottom line, that means that the mayor can write 50-year contracts, but also throw them in the garbage after a day if he does not like something or someone. This will put off a number of artists and sponsoring organizations and lessen the diversity in art that we are likely to see. Mass MoCA has a very large elephant artwork in storage behind Big Y that it might seek to have put on public property. Should its placement and longevity really be left to one man that used to work for the museum and has appeared to act as their agent in the Marshall Street pillar art fiasco? Will qualified individuals be less inclined to serve on this commission in the future? We should remember that Mayor Bernard suggested that the Egyptian-themed mural created in 2014 should be replaced. He said it was aging badly and that the surface preparations were inadequate. It turned out this was not true at all. Was this a purposeful lie or simply a product of a lack of expertise? Either way, it shows us why an authoritative public art commission has value. Thank you.
Any other members from the back row? Yes.
Henry Eski, 62 Chase Ave. I'm all for it and I'm against it. It should be arts if how big the place you're going to paint the stuff and how many places you're going to paint it. That is it, I'm going to say.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Not hearing anyone. Back to the council. Do we have other councilors? Councilor Buddington.
Just a few quick bits of information that I'd like to add. In preparation for this, I looked through our charter and ordinances for information about what regulates contracts in the city, and our charter requires the mayor's signature, and this is from memory, but on any contract over $2,000. And it requires, our ordinances require the solicitor's signature on all contracts across the board. And there are roughly 5 commissions that I found, including notably the Airport Commission, that have the ability to enter into contracts written into their ordinance. The limits of that, I have no idea, but I just wanted to put out there that's what I found. And I'd also, since I'm chair of the General Government Committee, like to make an impassioned plea to everybody who has input and will want to be involved in this. The meeting will work a lot better if as many as possible are willing to put things in writing and send them to me or the city clerk anytime, really. I mean, anytime before the meeting, which obviously we haven't scheduled yet, because that'll give me time so I can, if there are a lot of similar comments, we can organize those. And there will be public comment, but I'm guessing that if there are a dozen people there, I will in fact be limiting this to
Councilor Buddington, just clarify that you are the chairperson.
I am the chair of the General Government Committee.
Okay. Councilor Hopkins.
Just a question, if this is a joint meeting of general government and the Public Arts Commission, is the general government able then to take a vote to recommend something?
That's a great question. May I?
Go ahead.
In the back of my mind, I was assuming the General Government Commission would meet again on its own afterwards, because there's like some of the grammar details I think will not be of interest at that overall meeting.
Right.
When we've had joint meetings with council and planning board, each have had their own votes.
And gone their own way, right?
So,
thanks.
Councilor LaForest.
So I just want to say that in the current ordinances, it does say the Public Arts Commission shall develop and recommend to the City Council policies and programs that would encourage, et cetera. So my expectation of the joint meeting would be that both the committee and the Public Arts Commission would make recommendations to City Council going forward.
Correct. And that's how I understood that. Other councilors? I think we got good discussion going forward. Again, from some of what I heard from the audience, I hear that fear of one person, one decision, one mind. And I go back to the Parks and Rec, and I think of some of the great projects that Parks and Recs have approved that were not created in Parks and Recs. And I think, the skate park. I mean, that started years ago at Northern Berkshire Community Coalition with the Unity Group, and it made its way to Parks and Rec, which at the end made the recommendation, and the executive office approved it and got the funding. And, the splash park that's currently going to go up, the dog parks. Dog parks did not start in Parks and Recs. It started in the community. It started with residents. It made its way to Parks and Recs. Parks and Recs made the recommendation, and the executive office approved it. So I don't see, even with these changes, it comes down to one person in a closed door, in a bubble, saying this is what's going to happen with art. I really do feel art is growing tremendously in this community. I think, actually, Ms. Dixon, she was a part of a great forum this past week at Mass MoCA, the art town hall. Thank you.
For artists.
And it was like 130. Actually, sorry, Michelle was there. That was part of it. Jess, actually, we had 3 people who were really part of that. And there was a lot of artists there. And I would tell you one of the things, it's a little off topic, but I posted it when the question was asked, how many of you are native North Adams members? Only about 5 stood up. And the majority have moved here within the past 10 years. So we do have an art community growing, and we do have to appreciate that and work with it. But I do feel there's compromise that we can work moving forward. We do need a date set to return this, so that needs to be part of the motion, I guess. Amend the motion with a date return.
Given that we're trying to corral quite a handful of people all at once, I'd like to give it at least a month and a half, 2 months? 2 months. So that would be
October.
September, October, August. What's our meeting towards the middle of October?
9 or 23rd.
Can we say the 23rd?
Okay. So you want to amend your motion to add with a return date of October?
I'll amend my motion to specify a return date of October 23rd.
Do we have a second on that amendment?
Second.
All in favor on the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
So we now have a motion that is I don't even know if I'm on the same page out here. Oh, yeah. A motion to refer to a joint meeting of General Government and Public Arts Commission with a return date of October 23rd. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. This is, I guess, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have work to do. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We only got a couple more things, so if you want to stay, please do. We have open forum. All right. I'm going to give it a few seconds if people want to clear out at this point.
Sure.
Sure, it's here somewhere. Am I next? That's next.
All right, we have paper number 11,695, an order calling the state primary election for September 4th, 2018, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We need a motion to adopt.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. Any discussion from the public? Not hearing any. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Paper number 11,696, communication from Councilor LaForest regarding a crosswalk at the intersection of Bradley and Church Streets. We need, well, it's a communication. Motion to file.
So
Motion to
moved.
file. Thanks. And a second?
Sure, second.
Discussion. Councilor LaForest, did you want to read your paper? Or?
So, The issue, I guess I'll just read this. At the September 2015 meeting of the North Adams Traffic Commission, a crosswalk was approved at the intersection of Church Street and Bradley Street. The request was made, some of the letters are addressed to Autumn May, now Mrs. Wilson, so Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, who reside adjacent to that intersection. The commission communicated with the Wilsons in January 2016, noting the project would be completed in the spring. To date, the project has not been fulfilled. So there's an attached letter from the chairperson, Mary Ann King, dated January 13th, 2016, again indicating that the crosswalk was approved in September of 2015 and that it would be done in the spring of 2016, and it says when the rest of the crosswalks in the city are painted. So that now is almost 3 years since the Traffic Commission approved the crosswalk, and I guess I'm wondering why it has not been done. I'm responsible for following up on the
Any other
Traffic
councilors
Commission.
got discussion at this point? Do you, I know Mary Ann may want to speak, but, or Mayor, who wants to speak first?
I can't speak to the communication process around this, but after you initially inquired, Counselor, I did some checking. And after the communication from the Traffic Commission, there was a question raised by the administration and by Public Services about sight lines with where that crosswalk was proposed. And this is has to do with stopping distances and what Chapter 90 says with regard to allowable stopping distance and visible sight line where that's coming over a rise. I don't want to debate the specifics of that, but that was the concern at the time, that it was not within allowable sight lines traveling from south to north.
What, Mary, can we you want to let Mary Ann speak too, just, she. Name and address again.
Mary Ann King, 87 North Street, North Adams, Chair of North Adams Traffic Commission. I've been on the commission for over 23 years now. Just one correction, that Traffic Commission meeting was on Monday, September 14th.
Can you put the mic more, it's really for the people at home.
Okay.
If it's not aiming right at you, they can't hear you.
Okay, just a correction. That Traffic Commission meeting was held on Monday, September 14th, 2015, here in City Hall. Yes, the Traffic Commission did approve that crosswalk. With Mayor Elkenbright was at that meeting. He was also in favor of that crosswalk at that time. I don't know, any of you who are natives of the city, there was a crosswalk there for many years. People walking up to the lake would cross there because the other side of Bradley Street does not have a sidewalk. So people would cross over from Church Street and go up that side, and that's why the crosswalk was there. In doing some research, I went back to some old paperwork. We always had a list of crosswalks in the city that the DPW kept, and they would go by that list every year when the new walks were painted, and that was taken off. No one seems to know why. But I have noticed people still cross in that area. There are school children who come down Bradley Street, who come over to the other side of the road because that is where the bus stop is. So I did some research on this because no one had ever gotten back to the Traffic Commission to let us know that this crosswalk was never going to be done. And I had been in touch with Mr. Markland on numerous times, and like I said, with the mayor being at it and he approving it, crosswalks are not in a city ordinance, so these can be approved by the office of the mayor. And this is why the letter was sent to Mrs. Wilson, who I received the original letter from. He was in favor of it. It was set to go. And Mr. Markland had said that in the spring when the lines are painted, that this would be put on the list. And I had checked with him, and unbeknownst to him, no one had ever, told him where it came from that this wasn't to be painted. And in doing some more research, I found that our administrative officer was the one that said that that crosswalk couldn't be painted. I have never been told that. I have never been given a reason why. And to this day, I still don't know why. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just, I do want to point out and thank you for clarifying all that. There's a cutaway for a wheelchair or a walker to go down on one side of the street. There is a bus stop there at which we expect our children to cross Church Street in the absence of a crosswalk because of a sight line coming up from, I presume, the railroad trestle. I don't understand why this project wasn't completed. I don't understand why signage can't be put up. I don't understand why a crosswalk can't be put there if there was one there years ago and the Traffic Commission and the Mayor's office approved this project. So I'm not sure what the next step is, but I don't know if we need to refer this to Mayor Bernard or back to the Traffic Commission.
Well, Mayor Bernard is here. And I'm going to throw it at the mayor and say, Mayor, this was obviously something that's been approved. It's been vetted. And typically, when something is approved and becomes here at this point, it means it should happen. And for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. We really, for us to bring it back to vote yes again, unless there is a reason, there definitely, and I understand it, I'm not pointing this to your current administration, but this is something that, as far as I see it, it was approved, it's supposed to be happening, and it just hasn't happened. Or a communication should have come back to Traffic Commission and to the council with, this is why it's been decided. We need to reconsider it. I will say, and I know Mrs. King can testify to this, I mean, with especially Main Street, we did lose a crosswalk at one place. The state, sometimes with state money and certain things, they have determined they don't like too many crosswalks, They like red lights, but they don't want crosswalks, or something like that. So just because a crosswalk was there then does not mean a crosswalk should be there again, or a crosswalk may need to be in a different place. However, this one was approved, and I feel we need two things. It either needs to get done, or we need something official coming back saying this is why it's not being done. It needs to go back to Traffic Commission and reconsidered. Okay?
Great.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Would you want to change this to refer to the mayor for him to come back? Or do you just want to
No,
file
I guess
it?
it's already there.
Mayor, when can we have an answer?
Well, I can't and won't speak to the past communication process. This can be addressed, and I think that it does sound like the appropriate venue for communication is back to the communication back to the Traffic Commission, so that can be.
And the council, because we voted on it.
Okay. Traffic Commission and council, that can be brought forward for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I guess we have the motion to file. Any other discussion? Yeah. Sorry. I almost titled you counselor. Mr. Cardamino.
I've tried many times.
Thank you.
Robert Cardamino, 173 Quincy Street. Correct me if I'm wrong, but on the intersection of Eagle and Ashland Street on the east side, there is no crosswalk between the two churches. I brought this before council before. It's fallen on deaf ears. And while you're at looking at the streets and the crosswalks, Mr. LaForce, I hope you will address the pothole issue in this city.
Mr. Cardamino, I'm going to hit you with a point of order on that one. You can bring
Okay.
that up in
Okay.
open forum, okay?
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
talk to him later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. King, is it specific to this? Okay, thank you.
Just a point.
Okay, to the mic, please.
You said you were going to bring this back at your next meeting, or?
The mayor said he would bring
Okay.
us a
Just a point,
communication back.
Traffic Commission won't be meeting again until probably the second week of September, just,
All right. I think what we're getting is going to be a communication of either it's happening or why it's needs to be reconsidered. Okay? Thank you. But what I don't like, and Mayor, moving forward, is if something does get approved here and it just gets decided afterwards in a department.
This hasn't happened before. This is really the first thing
Yeah. Yeah, but that we just at least get told why. Yes, Councilor Biden.
Just as a point of clarification, did this actually come before the council or just the traffic commission?
I believe it was approved by the council. Well, when it goes to traffic commission, the traffic commission, I believe it comes. They're only a recommendation, or they only recommend to us. So. We have, any other discussion? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I wasn't aware that there was an issue with a bus stop where children have to cross. Now, I knew about the fact that there should be a crosswalk there, and if there's only a sidewalk on one side, I'm a walker. I've been here a year and a half in North Adams, and I walk a lot. Generally speaking, my experience has been that cars will stop while you're in a crosswalk. There's very few times, the percentage is very low, that does not happen. So there's a lot of discussion about this, but if it's already been approved, it needs to be done now because we're dealing with the children's safety. So I don't think we should wait on this matter. This should, all this discussion, we'll save it for another meeting, it should be done now. Okay, and that's where I'm at on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead. Name and address for the record, please. 2 minutes.
Ian Wilson, 432 Church Street. My question to this is if this does get delayed further into the season and the sidewalks aren't painted until the spring, we're looking at now April, May of next year, we now have to go through another school year of a half a dozen children trying to cross from Bradley over to church, my daughter being one of them. People going up to the lake on Wednesday night concerts, standing there waiting. And also on the other side of church, there is no curb cut. So I see people coming down in strollers, bicycles, everything else, who now, not only can they not go straight across the street, they have to now walk, ride, whatever, down Church Street 20, 30, 40 feet to someone's driveway where they can then access the other sidewalk, but again, without any sort of crosswalk. So my only concern here is if we delay this too much longer, we're going to have to go another 8-9 months before the city's able to paint and do the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Any other counselors? Not hearing any. There's a motion to file. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Paper number 11,697, a communication from Councilor Lamb regarding MCLA's tobacco-free campus. Motion to file.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion to file. Discussion. Do we have representatives here? Patiently waiting. I hope it was entertaining for you tonight.
Informative.
Go.
Kathy Holbrook, 9 Pine Hill Terrace, and I'm here as a representative of MCLA in my capacity as the VP for Student Affairs.
And I'm Barbara Chaput, 1078 Sand Mill Road in Cheshire, and I'm here representing MCLA as the Director of Human Resources.
So I will say, as you are, continue speaking to the mic. It's really for the people at home.
Okay.
So if you're not aimed right at it, or you're to the side, it doesn't pick up that well.
Okay.
So,
Right.
okay.
We're going to take turns with this, but we're here tonight because we want to share the fact that Mass College of Liberal Arts has implemented a new tobacco-free policy. It took effect on August 1st, 2018, and the policy prohibits smoking and other tobacco use on all property owned or operated by the college. This policy aims to provide a healthy living, learning, and working environment for our campus community, and it's intended to reduce the health risks that are related to secondhand smoke, as well as other adverse effects of smoke and tobacco use. We've been moving toward this important step for a number of years after modifying the policy in 2014, which limited smoking to specific designated areas on campus and adjacent to each residence hall. It became clear that there's a national trend for campuses to go smoke and/or tobacco-free. For example, as of 2017, over 2,000 campuses were smoke-free and 1,700 were 100% tobacco-free. In May 2017, MCLA's Board of Trustees charged the college leadership to develop a plan to become smoke-free by the opening of this coming academic year, 2018-19. They asked that this plan emphasize health and well-being of our community members and include information about cessation services and resources for those who smoke or use tobacco and may be ready to quit.
So we developed an implementation team on campus, and it was across campus. There was faculty, students, staff who were involved with this, with the implementation team, to work also on a communication plan to educate campus members about its implementation for this past, the first of this month. We had a grant from the American Cancer Society as well to help us with this implementation. This doesn't require people to completely give up tobacco products in their lives. It's to refrain from using them on campus. Other college-owned and operated property, so that includes the gallery, it would include our vans, even if they were being driven off campus, can't smoke in the vans either. If people do want to try to quit in general, we do offer a number of resources because this is about education for us as well. So our resources include our website where we have the policy, we have frequently asked questions, educational materials, we have tools to help communicate about the initiative. We're also offering a couple of programs. We're working with Berkshire Health Systems, their wellness program, and they have a Beat the Pack program for quitting smoking that we're going to be offering to employees and students in the fall. It's a 5-week program once a week, and we will also offer it in the spring if we have enough call for that, and they've been great in working with us. We also have an employee assistance program, and they offer telephonic tobacco cessation coaching, individual coaching for people. That's available to our employees as well, and we've been communicating that with our employees. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that, but we have people who are, of course, our neighbors, and we want folks to know about what's happening with this move.
Any questions? Stay there. Don't sit down. Any questions from the counselors?
I just have a statement. I think this is fantastic. You are setting such a great example for our youth. Raising children, it's very hard for me as the mother. They don't want to listen to me. But to see that MCLA is smoke-free, it sets an example and a precedent for those that are going to be coming to your institution someday. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that support.
Yes.
One question I have, because you did mention your neighbors, you've said there's programs for the students and there's programs for the employees. Is there any going to be community reach out maybe to the neighborhoods within the college? Because I'm thinking you got students who don't smoke, you got employees that are trying to quit, but yet they're walking between houses where there could literally be people just smoking on the street. So I didn't know, is there any future idea of your neighborhood, your college neighborhood?
We haven't talked about that yet, but if there were neighbors who were interested in those programs, we would certainly work to see if we could have room to be able to accommodate them. The employee assistance program is just our employees. The Beat the Pack program is for our students as well. We were concerned that folks would be concerned about how we were implementing the policy. Hadn't thought about it from that point of view, but if we had a call for it, we would certainly consider what we could do to help.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Harpen.
Just one question. Are you going to have signs up in particular places saying that you're smoke-free?
Well, we do. On July 31st, we took down all of the designated smoking signs and put up the new Clear the Air, Let's Clear the Air MCLA tobacco-free signs. So they're up. We did a walkthrough of campus. They're up in all the key areas and parking lots as people enter campus, and a lot of the walkway points, so that if it's a neighbor walking a dog who maybe has never seen this before, people will see it from any way they enter campus.
Great.
Other counselors? Anyone from the public? Mayor?
I want to echo the compliments as was implied earlier. I have a passing relationship with MCLA, and I know that this was a long time this was a long time coming, and it's a very good policy. I was on campus or driving through campus the other day. I saw the signage. It looks great. It's clear, and you know, it's a step long coming and very welcome. So thank you and compliments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brian, and then Mr. Carter.
Okay, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. My question is does this also include marijuana? Because that also involves secondhand smoke. And I do applaud the college for taking that step in a tobacco-free environment. I think it's very commendable that something like that has occurred.
While marijuana is legal in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts within limits, we are federally funded as a campus, and therefore it is not legal on our campus, so it has always been prohibited and will continue to be prohibited.
Thank you. Mr. LaForest first, then Mr. Carter.
Just an additional comment that it would be prohibited on the public ways around the college also.
Mr. Carbino.
173 Quincy Street, North Adams. Is it within the jurisdiction of the city to dictate what happens on campus, number one? And number two, if it is, who is going to enforce this? I'm a non-smoker, and I agree with you 100%, okay? But, you know, and who's going to enforce it? You know, and then when you say on public sidewalks, I think you're overstepping their reach, because the college owns the land, but they don't own the sidewalk. So if somebody's walking their dog, supposedly, and they're smoking a cigarette or a cigar, you know, what are you going to do to them? You know, it opens up, if you arrest them or something, I don't know. What's the penalty for it? Also, there's got to be a penalty for smoking on campus. Has that been brought up?
Okay.
And also,
I was
going to bring up the marijuana thing, but, you know.
It's not a city ordinance.
That's down the road.
Yeah, this, as far as I understand it, it's more of a program than a law, there, if I'm correct. But if you want to respond to his questions, please do.
This isn't regulated. This is a policy of the college. We're enforcing it with our employees and our, can you hear me if I still turn this way? Okay. With our students and our employees, and we have means to do that. We have a student handbook. If people violate policies, we have different contracts that we work under that talk about that if employees continue. We're not actually going to start out being punitive about it, though, because this is an educational effort. So while we're first implementing this, we will certainly be talking with people should we find them violating the policy, but it's going to be educational. We're going to offer them the resources to quit, the support to quit, and then if they continue to violate the policy, then we'll take a look at enforcing it on our campus with our own rules that apply to the particular, whether it's a student or an employee. So this is not something, when we were not talking about public streets, we're talking about MCLA property. I think when it was the public streets were mentioned, and someone can correct me, my understanding was that was about if someone were interested in quitting and they were adjacent, and would those resources be available to them, if I understood that correctly.
That was my question. I think Councilor LaForest mentioned about sidewalks, right? Was it, didn't you say sidewalks?
Only relative.
No, this is informational.
Oh, marijuana. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Anyone else? Not hearing anyone else. We have a motion to file. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Thank you very much for coming in. That brings us to committee reports and minutes. So we do have liaison updates too, so I'm not sure if you want to wait till liaison.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, since we have that still in here, it's a bit redundant, but well, if it's specific committee reports and minutes, anyone? No? Community calendar and events. Anyone have any events they want to announce? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Okay, Robert Smith again, 140 Pleasant Street. and I'm really getting to like this city. I was spending the last 3 weekends helping my son move up stuff from New York City, and going down there has been a horrible dream for me. So let me get to the events. And I like the way the city does this, all right? I have 2 events here that are coming up. It's the 22nd annual downtown celebration. That'll be tomorrow between 5:30 and 9 p.m. It's going to include musicians, magicians, balloons, animal balloons, hula hoops, games, giveaways, food vendors, etc., for all ages. I think that's a great thing. The other event is one of my favorites. I've been to 2 of them already up here. Is the Motorama, would be the 8th annual one. I love the 1950 cars. That's when I grew up in the Bronx. Okay, and that'll be on Sunday, August 26th. However, the day before that event, on August 25th, is going to be free night of live music in North Adams, and that's going to be featuring the Whiskey Treaty Roadshow. That's it. Thank you.
That just stole some of the mayor's thunder.
We love that you love North Adams.
That's right. Do we have any other calendar events? Okay, I'm sure we'll hear some from the mayor again. Let's see. Open forum. No? Yes. We have 2, Mr. Smith and Mr. Cardamino. Yeah, you're the only Mr. Smith left here, so it's you. Yep.
Okay, Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. Now, I've been attending these council meetings for maybe a couple of months now, but one of the things that I'm finding a little disappointment in is that it seems to me that too many times things are put off to a future date. Now, that's disappointing me because I'm sure there's a lot more things that need to be done in our city, and I'd say our city because I'm also a resident. And I'd like to see, more movement on, not hashing things out and then saying, oh, we'll leave it for a future meeting. I would like things to be taken care of in a more expedient manner so that we can get on to other issues that need to be taken care of in our city. And this applies to the mayor and all the council members and the president. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cardamino.
Robert Cardamino, 173 Squincy Street. When the ban on plastic bags didn't make it through council, I suggested that they go to recycling. Well, it's been brought to my attention that there is a mandatory recycling program in North Adams, and it is an ordinance, and it just needs to be enforced. And that ordinance, and I'm also told that with the recycling materials that when they were doing it before, this city would sell some of them recyclables, and they were getting up to $20,000 a year. So that could help turn around our recycling facility up there. And my second thing is, but you could check on it, and if it's an ordinance, we should be doing it, and let's, instead of banning the plastic bags, we can get rid of them and recycle them. And Mr. Forrest, there's potholes all over the city. Here we are, the middle of August, and we're going into winter, and there's still potholes on the streets that have been patched. There are areas 10, 12 feet long, potholes being patched where potholes were before. So they put and it looks like a puzzle, with just round circles of potholes with blacktop in them. And also, what should happen in this city is there's cracks in the blacktop. That allows water to get into it. And I've discussed this with Timmy Liscarbo and,
So you got to wrap it up. You're 2 minutes
yeah,
up.
okay, that they hire up an organization to fill those cracks, to keep the water out, to maintain, that's maintenance.
Okay.
That's not, and other cities and towns are doing it.
All right,
But
Mr.
Mr. Markland says it doesn't do any good, but the state does it, other cities and
Thank
towns
you.
do it. I think we should do it to preserve what we got before we get potholes over potholes over potholes like we've been doing. We've been chasing our tail.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
I will say he has brought that up many years. Are you in charge of potholes?
No, but I will let the mayor know Mr. Cardamino's concerns.
Okay, thank you.
We're going
Thank
to
you,
call you the pothole czar now.
All right. All right. Any more open forum? Yes, Mr. Sapienza. I'm not going to.
Yes, Brian Sapiens at 113 Pleasant Street. I've noticed on a couple of our downtown bike rounds, there were a couple of streets that were really rough as far as bicycle riding. We want to be a bike-friendly community, namely Quincy Street, and there were a couple on the on Church Street, just south of Pleasant Street. I noticed that there were a couple of fairly decent-sized potholes that would kill a bike in a short order manner. So I'm just adding further to what Mr. Cardamino was speaking about earlier. Okay, thank you.
My recommendation is to always forward specific locations to the mayor or to the DPW. It's worked well for me. Just this past week, someone was on social media complaining about Parker Street. And I took the pictures, sent them over to the mayor, sent them over to Timmy, and the next day, it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was. So I think when they see it, I tell people all the time, though, social media, it's not really the place to post it. You can complain and vent, but you really should go to the proper departments. Or Mr. LaForest, or Councilor LaForest, sorry. All right, liaison updates. Councilors' concerns. Mr. Wilkinson, you got something?
Well, I do, but it's because of the time and time I want to spend with it may not be the opportunity. The planning board had an exciting meeting last night, and I wanted to go into some detail because there was all kinds of cool people coming to town. But
So you want to wait or abbreviate it?
I'll try to abbreviate it.
Okay.
How's that? All right. So this is the liaison report. I am the liaison to the planning board. And there's been a steady stream of businesses passing through the planning board site plan review process for the last 6 months or longer. It seems North Adams is really getting to be the place to be. Last night at the planning board, there were 10 applicants total altogether. 7 of those were in the NORAD mill itself. I had a talk with the owner of the NORAD mill, Dave Morrissey, today, and he's 100% full. Every part of that mill is now rented, and that's kind of significant considering that he bought the thing in May of 2017. So in a year and a half, he was able to fill up the mill. And it's all kinds of different businesses. There's manufacturing, there's somebody's moving their yarn making business, and it's quite large, from California because they wanted to come here. There's 2 publishers. There's retail. There's an accountant, and I don't have the list right in front of me right here because but the medical staffing office, there's going to be skincare business and a dance studio. Also, there's a very large mix of different things all happening in one place and happening very fast. There's other interesting things. The Wigwam Summit is going to be reopening for coffee, wine. They're building cabins up there. They gave us a good show last night up on, I can't think of the PowerPoint. It's a PowerPoint thing, and it was very, very impressive. These people really have passion and really want to see this taking place. North Adams is kind of coming in its own, and I think, obviously the newspapers and the electronic outlets have told us a lot. I mean, it's just, I think North Adams is really starting to cook. Now, I'm in the real estate appraisal business. Most people know that. The realtors are amazed at the number of people that are coming right now to open houses. I mean, in the old days, or not the old days, but in previous, you have 5 couples or people to show up to an open house. That was significant. There's 20 to 30 coming to an open house now. There's houses in North Adams that are listed for $150, and there's bidding wards on them, and they sell for $160, $170. And we're seeing this all the time. As an appraiser, this is very difficult for me because banks don't like us to appraise things for more than people are asking for. They think there's something wrong with that. So it makes it difficult. But this is not just hit or miss. This is happening on a consistent basis now. So I just think that North Adams is doing real well, and it's showing through the process of the planning board. And I should mention that the meeting is very well run. They did those 10 businesses within a half hour. So, I mean, there was questions asked, but it's just well run. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilors' concerns or liaison reports? LaForest, Harpin, Hopkins.
I wasn't able to attend the planning board meeting last night, so my understanding is that Dave Morazy has done all of that work at the NORAD mill without the benefit of a tax incentive because he believes very strongly in the mission of the city of North Adams. And I would hope that we would see some other mill projects that have received TIFs from the city begin to show some productive projects.
Ditto.
I'm sorry?
I said ditto, yes.
Yeah. My concern, in our counselor's packet this week, I just want to point out that we did receive a copy of a municipal letter from Charter Spectrum, and they're from Anna Lucy, their Director of Government Affairs, detailing the very, very large profit margin that Spectrum has generated in our area to the tune of, well, let's see, $867 million. And I'm just wondering if the mayor could update us, not necessarily tonight, but maybe at the next meeting, how the interaction between the city and Spectrum has been proceeding. Because I know we had a meeting a couple of months ago, a hearing, public hearing with Spectrum, and I'm just wondering where that process is in terms of identifying potential breaches of contract and their commitments to the city.
Mayor, did you want to respond to that?
I'll wait till my report
Okay.
because I have that
Okay,
in
great.
there. I think we fell out of agenda order. So
Oh, we did.
had I spoken,
Okay.
Counselor, your questions would have been preemptively addressed.
Wonderful.
We'll keep
Thank
it at
you.
the councilors right now, and maybe you'll get more questions. Harpin?
Well, that's funny because I was going to ask the same question because I think I asked that at the last meeting as well, just, where we are with, if we are going to file a lawsuit or whatever we're going to do to proceed with Spectrum. And I just wanted to mention too, I think it's great, the NORAD mill, I've been there. You can tell they're still under construction, but it's really well formatted. There's a lot of signage there. If you need to find a business that you're trying to locate specifically, I went to DeMarsico Wine Cellars. So they do have wine tasting, I believe, on Saturdays, mostly during the afternoon, and it's a great atmosphere. I would highly recommend it. So that's all I have.
It's just, in addition, I forgot to mention, there's actually 36 businesses in there.
It's incredible.
Councilor Hopkins.
Just very quickly and through the president. Mayor, I understand that we're making some progress in filling out the city clerk staff as we had recommended, and that's good news, and thank you for that. And because I told some constituents I just want to mention that some people are pretty upset about the price of gas in North Adams and their perception that they pay more in North Adams than they do in surrounding communities. If you remember a few meetings ago, Councilor Cohen mentioned that there is a distinct lack of competition in the city, and that may well play into it, but I don't know. But I told these people I would bring it up and that they're mad, and there it is.
Thank you. Councilor Buddington.
Just a quick note that the Uno Community Center now has a beautiful park that seems to be open for business right across the street. It's an amazing place. I'm really impressed and pleased with what the people who run the place have done. It's a really nice place. And also there was a group that met this past week to discuss possibilities of composting on a larger than just a household scale. Nothing specific has come of that yet. I just wanted to mention that there are people interested in that in town.
Okay. Speaking of the Uno Park, I don't know if anyone drove by it today, but you will notice that and I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder again, but you will.
The thunder's just going left, right, and center at this point.
Your list is, you'll just have to speak less, but you will notice the former Sunshine Pool building is gone. And from what I was told, that for a while, at least there's no plans, it's gonna be just grass, nice green grass. Spectrum, I actually had someone who questioned me, which I threw at the mayor, and he did get an answer and responded. But one question I was asked, because Spectrum is sort of being kicked out of New York State as being the internet provider, and the question to us was that some of our internet may come from the Albany area, but there's a contract with the state of Massachusetts, so they have to keep that at least. Shorter in your list? All right. And I think that's it. Other counselors? Mayor?
All right.
What do you have left?
Oh, quite a few things.
Oh, okay.
First, I want to just remind everyone here and everyone watching at home that the registration deadline for the September 4th primary that was ordered this evening is tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th of August, and the city clerk's office will be open until 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. I'm going to divert from my prepared remarks for 1 second to jump on something that Councilor Wilkinson said. I get the monthly property sales report from the assessor's office, and what's been really interesting over the past couple months is watching the number of properties selling above assessment increase. So for the month of July, there were 28 transactions, and 10 of them were above assessed value, and I can run through some of those other numbers over the past few months, but it's a really interesting ratio, especially as you compare it to the beginning of the year. Gas prices, I have raised that concern with the Attorney General's office as well, so they're aware and looking into it, and when I have more to say on that, I'll report back. But I've seen it, and I know members of the council have seen it. If you spend any time in Pittsfield, or if you're traveling to Boston over Route 2 and you head Greenfield and further east, that disparity gets really, really stark, and that's what we're going to need some help from the state on that. Spectrum, Councilor Harpen did bring it up at the last meeting, and I can report that Dave Fabiano from Northern Berkshire Community Television and I met with our cable attorney last week, and we're continuing to frame out a very strong case of what Charter Communication has failed to do under the license and the areas that they're obligated to provide information about payments, pass-through costs, customer complaints, technical outages, et cetera. And so this is taking a little longer than I had hoped, but part of the reason is it is a little bit of a rabbit hole. You go one step into it and you find more reasons to hold the company's feet to the fire. So we're making a strong case to do that. I will mention that you I think received notice of this today, but next Tuesday afternoon at 5:30, there will be a public meeting on zoning in the conference room 202. You remember back in May, the council approved a free cash appropriation to support the update of the city's zoning map. And I've been working with a working group from my office, from the Office of Community Development, the Assessor and Inspection Services, along with a resource from Berkshire Regional Planning. We've got a really good process for reviewing the zoning map and the use tables, and we want to test some of these assumptions and get some input and feedback on how that map is developing before it's brought forward for any formal consideration. So it'll be a chance for a process overview, a presentation on the proposed updates, and then question and answer and discussion. I do want to do a look back at two community events. One was the Northern Berkshire Ropes celebration last Friday afternoon. I had a chance to swing by the first session, but I missed the completion program, so it was great to be up there last time to see the celebration of this program for youth in the area to hear about the leadership development and the growth that the students experienced over a few days. It's a great program that gets support from the DA's office as well as our local public safety agencies, local police, fire, EMS, who serve as facilitators to these students in their programs, as well as the youth mentors who went through the programs in prior years and then are there to help younger students, and then to the parents and families. Yeah, I did have a little bit of thunder on the UNO celebration. I do want to say that in addition to the park and to the pool, Sunshine Pool coming down, there was a terrific celebration on Saturday of the park and the center. It rained a little bit, but it really good crowd and good spirits. I want to thank Councilors Bona and Hopkins for being there. Senator Hines and Representative Barrett were among the speakers. The real star of the day, and deservedly so, was Shirley Davis, who's been at the work of community revitalization in North Adams for over 30 years. And you look at the history, Councilor Bona, I believe you were at the first UNO meeting in October of 1990, so that's how long the work that culminated in the opening last week has been coming.
Making that sound old.
You must have been young.
I was.
You should see the pictures.
Mr. Smith did mention Downtown Celebration. I want to just mention that there are 2 additional events going on concurrent. One is Bike Fest, which was going to happen earlier this summer, but it got rained out, as well as a celebration of the work that has been done during the Eagle Street initiative. So that's an acknowledgement of the work being done on the streets, including the hanging signs, which were exhaustively reviewed and approved by this council. Other events coming up, the Downtown Bike Around this Thursday from 6 to 7 in St. Anthony's Lot. There's a party in the park featuring Blind Smudge from 6 to 8 at Knoll Field. On Wednesday, the 22nd, we have the Windsor Lake concert featuring J.P. Murphy. That's a reschedule, I believe. I'll also mention Motorama, mostly just to mention that I found out I get to present an award, and that's very exciting. I didn't know that was part of the official duties. I'll also mention that I was challenged by the students of the 4-H to participate in a sheep showing this weekend as part of their fair. I'm not entirely sure what this means, but I did accept the challenge, and I'm looking forward to, putting on my boots and finding out.
Do you have sheep?
They provide the sheep, Counselor.
Bring your scissors.
Yeah, and then we may have to talk. And then I want to thank everyone who provided comment and input on the proposal on the Public Art Commission ordinance, particularly the folks, unfortunately, who aren't here any longer. I think we all got a lot of food for thought that will be coming out during the joint meeting. And what I would say with regard to the concern expressed is that while I do look at this as a procedural matter, I am strongly philosophically aligned with the concern of the folks who spoke this evening in terms of the balance between an inclusive participatory process and then the appropriate level of advice, particularly where there's a contract at stake. And the last thing I'll say is you and I are fine, Mr. Cardamino. Thank you.
Correspondence, we do not have any, or I'm barely bouncing around here. Licenses, we don't have any. Correspondence, you had the one from Spectrum, which was discussed. None others that I'm aware of. And we have a motion to adjourn in order.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.